good evening, and welcome to Drugs, Crime, and Politics, sponsored by Drug Policy Forum of Texas. I'd like to introduce you to our first guest tonight, who is Tony King.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And our new co-host, Bill Cox. And
Thank you. Pleasure.
yeah, thanks for joining us as well. Just a little bit of update on a few news briefs before we start. San Francisco's Board of Supervisors will vote this week on legislation to make marijuana the lowest level law enforcement priority. And this legislation was approved Monday by a board committee with the blessing of police officials. Also, Santa Cruz, Santa Barbara, and Santa Monica also approved similar measures in California. And a little bit of a funny story. Two police officers have sued Burger King Corporation, alleging personal injury, negligence, battery, and violation of fair practices after they were served hamburgers sprinkled with marijuana. So the lawsuit says the officers were in uniform and riding in a marked patrol car when they purchased the meals. So maybe we'll be hearing more about that. I'm going to turn it over now to our co-host, Bill Cox, and to our interview.
Thank you, Bindu. Yes, it's a privilege for me to introduce you Tony King. And Tony King's story is a story of modern-day oppression. And with that, I'd like to welcome you, Tony, and I'd like to talk to the viewers a little bit about your life, where you came from, and take it up to 2001, the day that your oppression began.
Well, I was born right here in the state of Texas. I'm 52 years old. I was born in Sherman, Texas. Went to school, finished high school, went to college. I went to the Union Sheet Metal Apprentice Program. Have a retirement vested to the Union Sheet Metal Program. I'm working as a non-union sheet metal worker now. But up until 2001, pretty much my life was married, truck, station wagon, 2 kids, dog, house. Everything was pretty good. And then I fell into an altercation with the law officials and got in some trouble. And from there, everything pretty much snowballed, and basically my whole life fell apart. So, you know, up to that point, everything was good. And then from that point on, I lost my home, my family, pretty much everything I had.
Now, in 2001, you were charged with a possession of a controlled substance. And can you describe that a little bit?
There was cocaine in the car that I was driving at the time. I was the only person in the car. And I got pulled over by a trooper. And the trooper asked me, he was training a rookie, and he asked me if he could search my car. And I had heard been other people in the car. The car was my car, and there was no one else in the car. So according to Texas law, if it's in your car, it's yours. And he asked if he could search my car. I didn't know there was anything in the car, so I allowed him to search my car. I'm standing here talking to a young rookie, 3:30 in the morning. And so he came back and he said, "I think we have a problem." And I said, "What kind of problem can we have?" And he held out some things in his hand, and it was cocaine. And he said, "You want to tell me about it?" I said, "Well, there's not really much to tell. You know, I've grown up around the law most of my life, and I understand, you know, that I'm the only person in the car. The car is mine. So basically, I really don't have anything else to say, because if I say anything, it's not going to do anybody any good. Basically, I'm just going to have to bite the bullet and do whatever has to happen."
From that point on, you were in the system. Can
Yes,
you
sir.
describe a little bit of what the system is, as you saw
The
it?
system. Well, the first part of the system is, you know, they lock you up, they take you downtown, you go through processing in Harris County, which usually takes about 3 days to get to a bed. Or if you get a bed, basically, when you first get there, you'll end up sleeping on the mat on the floor, because it's crowded. And it takes a long time to get into the system, just at Harris County. And then from there, you know, if you have a bond, to get bonded out, the inconveniences, the cost it costs your family, just to bind you out in the first place so that you can go back, you know, work, try to be productive, do what you got to do while you try to fight this thing. And basically from that point on, it was downhill for me. It just ate me up.
What did you see about the rehabilitation facilities and opportunities while you were in the system to get you back out, get you productive?
There's nothing there really for you except for in certain units now. Most of the units I was on, from the first unit I was on, which would be Garza West, for intake, you're thrown into a tank and they send you through processing to find out if you're psychologically, how stable are you, what kind of medications you need, all this, so they can figure out what unit to send you to. And so there was no opportunity then. And from there, I went to a unit and spent the summer in a unit where in the tanks it was about 112 during the day and 93 at night. So, you'd go to jail for putting your dog or your family in a position like that, but yet they'll house 52 men in a tank together with two little 25-inch fans mounted on the wall and say, there's nothing you can do about it. This is where you're at. You shouldn't have committed the crime. And 99.9% of the people I encountered while I was in the system was for nonviolent crimes, because the people that get convicted of violent crimes go to certain units. They don't mix with basic population of people, the people that are actually not a threat to society. We didn't do anything basically to hurt anyone else. We did something that was wrong in their eyes, according to the law.
What percentage of the population would you say are that type versus the violent crime?
You're talking about the population in the units?
Mm-hmm.
I actually only encountered 2 violent criminals during the period of time that I was incarcerated, and that was during transfer from one unit to another. That was the only time I was anywhere close to any of them. Basically, what happened is those people go to another unit. So I would say probably 98% of the people that are locked up in Texas Department of Criminal Justice right now are for nonviolent crimes. And so basically we're spending millions and millions or billions of dollars to lock people up for things that incarceration, I can tell you now from firsthand experience, is not a means of rehabilitation. If a person has a problem, locking him up is not going to help that problem. You can take a man away from whatever it is he does, that's his vice. But when he gets out, if he sees fit and he wants to do it, he's going to do it again. No matter how bad you make him feel, how mad you make him, how much you belittle him, whether you lock him up in a tank by himself, when he gets out, everything changes. He's going to go back to doing what he was doing before if that's what he plans to do. A lot of people, like myself, while I was locked up, I took the chance.
Let's go ahead and take the vote.
Sure, go ahead.
I'm not sure that this is actually a call. Should we
Okay.
take this? I guess not. Okay.
All right. During the case, while I was locked up, no one was rehabilitated until I got to a unit to where there was actually a college program.
How did you use those opportunities to better yourself?
Well, during the course while I was incarcerated, I became an ordained minister through study, mail order. I mean, there's actually not a pastor that will come to you, but you have a way of doing things. And so I became an ordained minister. And then beyond that, I went to college at Lamar State College, Port Arthur, while I was in Beaumont at a behavior modification unit. I was there for 7 months. I took 4 classes to become a licensed chemical dependency counselor, which is 12 credits towards the 18 that it takes to do the internship.
Are you seeing where they're changing the rehabilitation or in the policies in TDC?
No, they're not. They're changing a few things, but basically, you have people that are interns that as far as the behavior modification in the units, there's only a certain amount of units. They're cutting back on those units because they realize that all the money they spend for the extra counselors and stuff, in the long run, when you get out, it's just like a guy that's been locked up and didn't get those opportunities.
What do you think are some major changes that could turn this around, that could make it to where there is actually real change? We don't lock up a large portion of our population.
I think some of the biggest things that would help is to, instead of locking the people up and putting them in prison for nonviolent crimes, if they need to be rehabilitated, if they have an addiction problem and they won't help, then I think should take that revenue to help these people get rehabilitated.
Tony, I hate to interrupt you,
Sure.
but I think we've got a call here. This
Sure.
is probably Dean calling in. So, hello, are you there?
Yes. I have a question for you. What's the worst thing that you hate about prison? I mean, were you ever scared or, anything like that? Because my brother, lately I don't get him because he's been acting real different. He's trying to head all the way up. He's trying to head up to prison. He can leave a safe place, and I don't know what to do. I try to talk to him, and I need some help.
Well, basically, when you go to prison, everything changes because you realize you're one person against everyone else. Now, you have family out there, and my mother and my children stuck by me to the end. Is whenever I was incarcerated, and without them, I probably could have been lost for a long period of time. It took 3 months for me to make my first phone call. As far as visits, my first visit, I was incarcerated over a year before I got my first visit. If you care about your brother,
I do.
realize one thing. He had to go into a different mode when he got locked up because everything he does is wrong. Everyone around him is out to get whatever they can from him, from the guards controlling every move he makes to the inmates trying to find out what he's got that they want, that they can get. So everybody goes into a defense mode when you're locked up. So I think if he hasn't been locked up for a long period of time yet, I think that's probably one of the big things is that he's in a defense mode. He's protecting himself right now. So, yeah, you're his brother, and in the back of his mind, he realizes what you want to do is good for him. But right now, he's trying to protect himself. And, I mean, that's the way he's good. That's the way he acts, I'm sure, because that's the way most of us get. When you go in, you don't know who you can trust.
And you don't want to show any emotion.
No.
Right? Yeah.
No, nobody shows emotion in there unless it's somebody crossing your path in the wrong way, and you got to hold your own. You don't have a choice when it comes to that.
Wow. I didn't realize that.
So,
What do you think I should tell him, though?
Really? How long has he been locked up?
For about 6 months.
How long?
6 months.
6 months? How much longer is he going to be in prison? What did he get sentenced?
He was only like 17 years old, and he got caught on drugs.
Caught with drugs.
Okay.
That's fine.
But how many years did he get sentenced?
I got scared because the way he was, because he got in the gang and all that stuff. And I'm the good person in the family, I'm trying to help him. I don't want him to go into the wrong path.
Right.
He's in jail, and he was, he just got out. He almost did, but they caught him. He ended up escaping from jail, and now he's in prison. And I'm scared for him because I don't know. He doesn't give a damn about his life, and I'm trying to help him out. And I need some advice. Maybe I can try to get through to him. Maybe I can realize what he was doing is wrong. He doesn't deserve to be in prison. He deserves to be here at home.
Right. How much longer does he have?
According to what I heard, my mom was really upset. He has about 8 weeks.
8 weeks?
Yeah.
Left?
Selling drugs and alcohol.
Okay.
In the fight.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and let Tony finish up his answer about what he can say or what he can do, but thank you so much for calling in.
I'm watching.
All right,
Right.
great, thanks.
I think the best thing to do is just show him love, care about him, let him know that you care. When he's ready, be there to talk to him. As far as trying to tell him something right now, he's still in defense mode. He's still protecting himself. And realize that since he got locked up, you think he was involved in gangs while he was out? These guys in the gangs that get locked up, what they do is they take the youngsters that are in the gangs while they're locked up, and they school them. And they school them on what to do and how to handle things when they get out. So we're feeding the fire, locking up these guys that are in gangs and putting them all together in tanks and putting them all together in these units and stuff. I think we're really feeding a bad fire. Instead of giving these guys the opportunity to change their lives without locking them up, give them that opportunity first. Then if they mess up, then you got to show them, that they can't get away with those things. But the gangs nowadays, it's an art when you're inside a TDC unit. I mean, if you're part of the Texas Syndicate, if you're part of the Houstones, if you're part of the Emmys, if you're AB, AC, that's Aryan Brotherhood, Aryan Circle, these are other organizations, these gangs, and that's just naming a few. There's probably over 100 gangs locked up between Harris County, the other counties in the state of Texas, and TDC. So realize that all you can do is just try to point him in the right direction, but you can't make him change. He's got to want to change.
Isn't that the real issue, though, in prisons? It's an incubator for crime. If you weren't a criminal when you went in, you certainly will be when you come out.
You get the education.
And another thing is that you can actually have more easily access to drugs and anything than you probably would out here if you hadn't tried.
Sure. There's some units now that, you know, if you get caught with drugs, I mean, it's a case on any unit as far as the way they talk about it. But there's some units here in the state of Texas that since I usually had groceries, commissary, whatever you want to call it, if I wanted to make a phone call, I could. All I do is give somebody some of my store, some of my groceries. I can make a phone call. Somebody in there, an inmate's going to have a phone. In some units, you can get marijuana, you can get cocaine, you can get heroin, you can get crack, you can get all the paraphernalia that goes with it.
By outlawing everything, you give it a more intrinsic value by making it scarce.
Sure, absolutely. You create the demand.
You create the demand.
And if you decriminalize things, and you end the prohibition of what's going on nowadays, to change the laws, to change the way America looks at things, then we take the street vendor and put him out of business overnight. We eliminate the terrorist funding, and we put it into a taxable revenue.
I think we're about to go on break here, so I hate to interrupt you, but let's go ahead and finish this conversation when we get back, but we are going to take a short, quick break, and we hope to see you when we get back.
It's time to play Name That Drug by its side effects. Constipation or diarrhea, dizziness, nausea, vomiting, blurred vision, difficulty passing urine, skin rash, itching, yellowing of the skin or eyes, unusual weakness, and fevers. Time's up. The answer, Crestor, another FDA-approved product.
This week in drug war history, November 4th, 1998. Voters in 7 states overwhelmingly approved 9 medical marijuana and larger drug policy initiatives. November 5th, 1996. Proposition 215 in California passes with 50% of the voting public in favor. Proposition 200 in Arizona passes with 65% of the vote. November 6, 1985. Up in the ante in the battle against extradition, guerrillas linked to the Medellin cartel attacked the Colombian Palace of Justice. At least 95 people are killed when the Colombian military attacked after a 26-hour siege. November 6, 1989. Former President Ronald Reagan's Secretary of State, George Shultz, is quoted by the Associated Press, "We need to at least consider and examine forms of controlled legalization of drugs." November 7, 2000. In California, Proposition 36 passes with 61%, diverting nonviolent drug offenders into treatment rather than prison for first and second offenses. 52% of Mendocino County voters approve a measure decriminalizing personal use and growth of up to 25 marijuana plants. November 7, 2002. Ruling in favor of the Normal Foundation and Media Access Project complaints, public service announcements broadcast under the auspices of the White House Drug Office advertising program must identify themselves as being part of that program. November 8, 1984. The international marijuana seizure record is set at 4,260,000 pounds in Mexico. This is Steve Nolan for the Drug Truth Network.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bill Cox, and this is Drugs, Crime, and Politics. It's my privilege to bring back for one more section Mr. Tony King and his tale of modern-day oppression. Tony, 52-year-old man, spent time in TDC. What we're going through is talking about the oppression that you went through. Let's talk a little bit about, for the viewers again, your experiences not only in Harris County, but some of the things that happened in the Garza West and the Lopez units and the changes that you tried to bring?
Well, in Garza West, there was a lot of movement. There was a lot of things going on in Garza West. As far as during the intake process, they keep us pretty much separated from general population, but you still have to deal with the elements of the guards controlling every move you make, everything you do. You line up for chow. You know, everything is done by the inmates. All the work's done by the inmates. It's monitored by the guards. So we do all the work. And so, and the guards make the money to make sure that we do the work. But from Garza West, when I went down to Lopez Unit, at Lopez Unit, I was down there, and I got down there just in the right time, I guess, as far as being summertime. It was about 93 degrees at night in the tanks, about 112 during the day, and it's just, I mean, it was, unreal. And so I went to the captain on the unit down there and complained to him about it in writing, complained to Austin, the Texas board, about the heat. They did actually come down there and start monitoring during the period of time while I was down there, because enough of us stirred up enough fuss that the state actually came down there and put thermometers inside the tanks and made the guards monitor.
You use the term tanks, and that's the cells, the metal cells, is that correct?
Right.
And being metal, the temperatures...
It never cools off during the summer. You get up in the morning at 3:30 to go to necessities. That's if you want clean clothes. And down there, most of the units, they make you go get clean clothes because they have to keep the place clean, or they have to do what they can. And the things that they control, they make you do. And so, you go to necessities at 3:30 in the morning. We would leave from the tank that I was in. We go one tank at a time. You go out, you go rain or shine, cold, hot, whatever. It doesn't matter, temperature-wise or weather-wise.
Now, take it back for the viewers. You, up until 2001, you're a law-abiding citizen,
I never really been in trouble in my life.
nonviolent criminal.
Never really done anything to hurt nobody in my life.
And this is your experience in the system as a nonviolent criminal.
Right.
Now, was there any type of encouragement, rehab, any type of change that you sense in the air of how they were handling nonviolent criminals to be different from the violent offenders that were in there?
Well, like I said, most of the violent offenders were kept away from the general population because of the type of crime that they committed. Because, I mean, if they're doing a lot of years, you tell them, well, if you hit somebody or you get in a fight with somebody that you're going to get a case, if he's going to be there 25, 30 years, he doesn't care if he gets a case. He don't care if he hits a guard. He don't care who he hits. So they keep them separated from us because they want us to stay intimidated. That's their way of making us change. That's the way they do things is, intimidation is the means of change. They'll lock you up, they'll lock you down in your tanks, they'll lock you up, make you bunk up,
Now, you talked about the costs as far as the physical and the changing of your life. Now, why don't you go in it for the viewers and talk a little bit about the costs in actual dollars. And, of course, everybody knows opportunity costs and things that you weren't able to do. But let's start by talking about actual dollar costs of what this...
Well, when it first happened, it cost $5,000 to bond out.
Just for starters?
Just for starters, right. Okay. Once I got bonded out, it cost probably about $6,000 in court costs. So, that's about $11,000 right there. That was just the tip of the iceberg. That was, and then with the period of time that I was incarcerated and the lost revenue and stuff for the years that I was incarcerated between it, opportunities and everything else, probably around $250,000, maybe $300,000 is what it cost me. Now, it cost me a lifestyle, it cost me a family, it cost me everything.
Now, talk to the viewers a little bit about what positives you had behind you while you were in that allowed you to take this situation and turn it around to a positive in your life.
Well, I've never been one just to sit back and let things just happen to me. I've always been a person of I consider a leadership type quality. When I was a kid, I was a Boy Scout, I became an Eagle Scout, I went to school, I went to college. I provided for my family. I've always tried to do the right thing, because I live by one word. It's called integrity. And integrity to me means doing the right thing whether somebody's looking or not. Mm-hmm. And so, I always tried to do the right thing, and that kept me going the right direction. So when I got locked up, it was either I could sit there and cry about what had happened to me and have a little poor me fit and just blame it on somebody else, or bite the bullet and accept the responsibility for what had happened to me and try to turn it into a positive. So I started through a correspondence course to become an ordained minister, which I did complete. I completed it in 2007. Also went to 4 college courses while I was incarcerated to become a licensed chemical dependency counselor. I still have 2 more of those courses to complete. But due to the parole conditions when I first got out, I was unable to complete them because of my parole officer at the time.
Okay. Now, because of your unique situation, the fact that you're close to being a certified chemical dependency counselor, because of your experience in TDC, and the fact that, well, quite frankly, you've been around the block a couple of times, what do you see as important steps that we can take as a society to try to remedy the situations that we have in these prisons with all these nonviolent criminals?
I think there's a lot of change in order that needs to take place at the local level. I think there's a lot of change in order that needs to take place at the state level. And I think there's a whole bunch of change that needs to change and take place on the federal level. And I think our present election has started to make, notably, that some of these changes are going to happen. Things are going to change. Our society is waking up to understand that there's so many people's families and so many people's lives that have been affected in a negative way for nonviolent crimes that they're going to start fighting back. And that locking up people is not going to change them. The rehabilitation process through the federal system or the state system or the local system is a flounder almost out of water.
I read somewhere where back in the 30s and 40s, you had the gentleman criminal, the safecracker, and that kind of thing. They understood why they were locked up. Whereas the nonviolent, as well as the drug culture, those people are locked up and don't feel, and rightly so, that they are criminals. They are being repressed because of their situation, because they didn't have the opportunity or the money to legally obtain medication, or because of the current legislation that makes marijuana. Thank you, Tony, for your message of hope and your experience, and congratulations on making it through.
Yep. December 6, 2006, my last day on parole. I'm happy.
Congratulations. And now we'll be going to break. Oh, phone call?
We have a phone call. Oh.
Well, drugs, crimes, and politics.
Thank you. I'm wondering what direction we're going in when there's, no left turn on green and no right turn on red. It's kind of like we're entering into a speed hump society. With all the changing that is going on, or at least the talk of it, my question for y'all is, what laws would you pass if you could, and if you had to repeal one first, what would that be? And if I could answer my own question, while y'all think about what your response might be. First of all, one law I would make is for lawmakers to really think through their laws a little bit more before they pass them, because it's so hard to repeal them. As for repealing, I've come to the conclusion that I do think we should decriminalize use and possession of marijuana. Purchase and sale should remain criminalized. In other words, I kind of do think that marijuana is a gateway drug, but not so much for consumers as it is for distributors. So in other words, maybe cut out the heart or the tumor or whatever it might be. I look forward to your response.
Tony, would you like to go ahead and take that first?
Sure, I'll take that. Hang on, we'll get to you right here, and I'll help you out here. I think the first thing we need to do, as far as repealing a law, we need to go back and put someone in office or someone in there on a board that would look at it from a non-political aspect, from a non-legal aspect, but more from a moral aspect of thinking that, well, we're a democracy, America is a free country, but yet the things that are not hurting everything are the things that are the most sought after as far as incarceration. So we need to change some of the minor laws, but we need people there that understand from the layman's point of view. I think we've got too many lawyers helping make the laws, and I understand that's what lawyers do. That's what our criminal justice system does. But I think what they're doing is building laws to help themselves to whatever it is that they think they can get away with. And I think us as Americans and us as citizens of our country it's time for us to stand up and let them know that we care and that we're not going to put up with them trying to control our lives anymore. Give us the freedom to make our own choices. As long as it's not out there on the street, take it away from the street vendor. Take it away from the terrorists if they're the ones distributing in the large quantities. I know most of the big quantities, the chemicals and things come in, but more people die from our pharmaceutical drugs right here in the United States than I don't know of anyone that ever died from smoking marijuana. I really don't. In fact, I've been around people over 30 years, and I've never seen anyone that heard anything when they were smoking marijuana.
I can't think of any particular law that I would necessarily change at the moment, but what I can say is this. I am very excited about the midterm elections. The fangs have been taken out of the Bush administration, and I really feel that there is going to be big change, and it's going to accelerate through the nomination committee, and our candidate is actually going to grow. So I'm very excited. And Tony, congratulations.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And we'll be back. Drugs, Crimes, and Politics.
You break?
All right.
They want me to move out?
I consider marijuana the worst of all narcotics far worse. The use of morphine or cocaine under the influence, then become peace.
Yo, my name is Sammy C, and as you can see, the feds got me locked up in the penitentiary. I got a murder to my left and a rapist on my right, and all I did was toke on my peace pipe. America has since spent $25 billion locking up people who were trying to chill. They weren't trying to fight, they weren't trying to kill, but since 1937, they have totaled 17 mil. Now, I don't need to tell y'all what's wrong with that when I did the same time as them violent cats. Look, I know almost half of y'all smoked a dime, so who knows how many of you could be doing time. And even then, after prison, tried to turn a new page. Well, I got news for you. You're earning minimum wage, because the feds won't approve your financial aid. So I don't know how you think you're getting college paid. Maybe you can join the army, get the GI Bill, but better not light up, or your battle's uphill. They'll throw your butt out of the service dishonorably. All that fuss because you smoked a little THC. And if your grandma wants to hit for her chronic pain, then in most of America, she's legally to blame. So come on, normal people, join me in this fight. We gotta do something now, because this mess ain't right. We gotta take it to D.C., tell Congress there. Stop arresting pot users, spend the money elsewhere. Smoking pot is normal. What?
Great, and thank you so much. Welcome back to Drugs, Crime, and Politics. We're here with Tony King. Before we went on the break, someone had called in actually a really decent question about what would he change, what law would he change. And you guys had various responses and everything. My response would be, I would definitely apply for decriminalization because, decriminalization, the Texas Public Policy Foundation wrote an amazing editorial in the Houston Chronicle. They're predominantly a very conservative Republican organization, but they wrote an editorial that said, Houston, like just blasting Houston, just as you've been describing the just distraught situation of TDC and the Houston jails. Their prisoner-to-guard ratio is supposed to be something like 20 to 1. They have 30 to 40 to 1. So I wanted to ask if you'd noticed anything about that. But they said that basically at the end of their article, they said, and they called for, this conservative organization called for a decriminalization in Texas. And I thought that's why I'm wearing this button tonight.
Right.
And, I think that that's just an amazing idea, especially that very conservative organization would say that, it's not just about, recreational, it's about helping our state.
Right.
We're just spending too much money and wasting taxpayer money on this, on prisons, and we need prison reform. The ACLU of Texas has an awesome prison reform group that maybe you could connect with later if you want to look that up. But also, let's see, a couple of events that are going on. Houston Normal is having their meeting tomorrow at 7:30 at West Gray Cafe to discuss upcoming events and things that we can do like this. Texans for Medical Marijuana, TexansForMedicalMarijuana.org is their website, and they are having a medical marijuana bill next session, next year, 2007. So please go online, sign their petition, print out their petition so that you can have your friends sign it. The ACLU of Houston is having a movie showing tomorrow night at Greenway Plaza at 7 o'clock, and with reception to follow for ACLU members at Mykonos on Richmond and Kirby. So those are a few events that are going on. But those of you who call in and who continually watch and are concerned about prison reform or concerned about drugs, crime, or politics, please come to the Houston Normal meeting. Please sign the online petition. Once again, you can look at HoustonNormal.org to find out more information, or TexansForMedicalMarijuana.org to find out more information. So also, you guys were talking about midterm elections, which I'm so glad that there was so much hype put up about that. I'm so glad that I'm kind of curious as to what's going to happen now that the Democrats have, both members or both parts of Congress, the House and the Senate. So, I guess you got cut off before the break. What was your stance on what was going on?
Well, I think the big thing with that is the change is going to happen, and it's going to happen quicker now, because whether you're a Republican or you're a Democrat, these politicians are starting to listen to the people. They're starting to listen to the people that actually are the ones that put them into office. Before, it was a hype, but once they got in office, they didn't care.
Right.
They're not going to listen to you. They don't care what you want to do.
They care about one thing.
That's right.
Yeah, getting
reelected.
But
now, it's not just about getting in and getting to that next election and then lying again. They actually want to get in there, and people are actually getting in office now that are willing to work and earn their money. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the big change and the big key that we're going to see in the change in our government right here in the United States. In the next 2 years, I think we're going to realize that there's been a lot of strong choices made, and a lot of people have spoken out and said, this needs to stop. And whatever it is that you think needed to stop, you voted according to that now. And we expect, as citizens, for those things to change.
Right.
And we're looking for it. I'm going to keep looking for it.
Yeah.
I want to be out here.
Of course. There's a reason why they're called our public servants. They are there to serve us.
Right.
And the only way they'll know what you want is if you call them, if you write a letter to them, if you go to their office, if you go up to Austin for a bill that you support, say, I don't know, medical marijuana in Texas, and you go talk to them about it. Hey, it looks like we have a phone call, so it looks like someone wants to talk to us. Hello, welcome to Drugs, Crime, and Politics.
Hello.
Hello, Bindu. This is your buddy Clay.
Hey, Clay, how's it going?
You guys just asked a wonderful question, but the answer to that question is, get these son of a guns that are our state representatives that don't represent us. Get them the hell out of office. That's what we need to do.
You'd like this
Just
guy.
like here in Spring Branch, we have a state representative, Dwayne Bohack. We all need to start calling him because he's going back on his word that he would support medical marijuana. And just before the election, he told me he wouldn't.
He flipped.
So
Yeah.
we're stuck with this guy for another 2 years.
Right.
We need to get rid of these non-responsive state representatives.
Right. And we actually, no, thank you so much, Clay. We actually had his opponent, Mark McDavid, on this show. And I was so surprised and so happy for how many votes Mark McDavid got. It was something like, 60 to 40, but that's for basically, we interviewed him several months ago, and he was basically an unknown at that point.
Right.
Clay, you're so right. We need people knocking on doors in their neighborhood or going to your representative. Martha Wong was not reelected because she was doing the same type of thing. Special interest groups would go to her door, talk to her, wine her and dine her, give her money. She'd say she'd vote for a bill for, oops, sorry, bye, Clay. And, and then at the end of the day, she wouldn't vote for it. So, we have Ellen Cohen now, and I'm very excited about having her as my representative. So, we need to get people out there petitioning, talking to your representative. In Nevada, initiative question 7 that would legalize the possession of up to an ounce of marijuana and provided for its regulated sale and taxation lost, but it gained 44% of the vote. A similar measure in Colorado, measure 44, lost, but it gained 40% of the vote. So, you're absolutely right. People are realizing that this is not something that is just recreational, let's, get high and go start fights in bars or anything. This is,
That's not what it's all about. It's about people being able to have the option to use alternative medicines to help themselves. It's like people that have cancer and they take chemo and everything else and they lose their appetite. They can't eat. And they die because they can't keep their nutrition up. But from knowing people that have cancer, people that use medical marijuana, the smoking gives them the appetite to eat, to keep their nutrition levels up. So they eat, so they live longer. They have a better chance of fighting a battle. And I don't know who gets off being so arrogant to think that because it's not chemical and it's not made by the Food and Drug Administration or it's not monitored by one of the companies, that it's no good.
right.
And that's where they make their decisions because they don't see how they can make money at it. So, the finances is not there. I mean, we just don't have the revenue. We're fighting a drug war.
Yeah, exactly. And effectively, you're right. Not only that, but pharmaceutical companies won't really fund too many studies because what's the profit in marketing a drug that you can grow in your backyard?
Right.
And I'm so glad we got onto this subject because here is some information, and being, I guess, a scientist myself, it kind of impacts me a little harder when, as opposed to some kind of sentimental editorial I read, there's actual studies that have been done that prove, and it's called Oops, Marijuana May Prevent Cancer, Parts 1 through 4, from something titled Top 10 Pot Studies the Government Wished It Had Never Funded. The first one, federal researchers implanted several types of cancer, including leukemia and lung cancers in mice, then treated them with cannabinoids, which is the effective compound in THC. THC and other cannabinoids shrank tumors and increased the mice's lifespans. Okay, so, and that's in Anti-Neoplastic Activity of Cannabinoids, Journal of the National Cancer Institute. Okay, this is a published study showing that cannabinoids shrink tumors. This is not just, for people who take it to ease the pains of chemotherapy, which there are a lot of oncologists who will recommend that. Right. But this is actually shrinking tumors. Another one here, Donald Tashkin, a UCLA researcher whose work is funded by NIDA, did a case control study comparing 1,200 patients with lung, head, and neck cancers to a matched group with no cancer. Even the heaviest marijuana smokers had no increased risk of cancer and had somewhat lower cancer risk than non-smokers. tobacco smokers had a 20-fold increased lung cancer risk. So, in a study of 1,200 patients, that's a pretty big study. Published in the American Thoracic Society International Conference. Okay, so maybe it was a poster or something. But yeah, for people who call in and ask, or people who tell me constantly, yeah, well, marijuana causes cancer at an alarming rate, even more so than tobacco use does.
We have long-term studies now. You just read some of them right there that show that now that we've got the studies to back it up, what they're saying, what they're wanting us to believe is not really true.
Yeah. So
let's just all tell the truth.
Yeah. A little truth. But something also that you'd mentioned in the beginning part of your interview was that nonviolent criminal offenders were divvied up from the violent criminal offenders.
Yes.
Well, was the majority of the nonviolent criminal offenders, were they drug convictions?
Drug convictions, alcohol convictions, people with DWIs, basically nonviolent crimes.
Yeah.
And that was like when you go through intake, they do a whole sociology test on you and everything. They do a profile to find out who you are, what you're made of, what your background's like, what your attitude's like, things like that. So they put you with compatible people while you're locked up because that's the path of least resistance for them.
I would answer, I am the nicest dove ever. Please lock me up with similar type people.
Right.
Well, it looks like we have a call, so let's invite... I'm wrong hand signal. We're going for a break, so please join us back, ladies and gentlemen, on Drugs, Crime, and Politics here at Houston Media Source when we get back from our break.
Mitchell Lawrence, a 17-year-old from Great Barrington, Massachusetts. He won't be graduating from high school with his friends this spring. He can't. He's in jail, serving a 2-year sentence for selling 1 joint's worth of marijuana, about a teaspoonful, to an undercover cop. He's never been arrested before, but he got 2 years in prison for 1 joint's worth of pot. Not community service, not a fine. 2 years. A cost to taxpayers of nearly $100,000, and a criminal record for life. How could this happen in America when 100 million Americans have smoked marijuana? It takes 2 things, a bad law and a cruel prosecutor. Mitchell was busted in a drug-free school zone. But drug-free zone laws keep drugs out of our schools and protect our kids, right? Wrong. These laws do nothing to protect children. They just fill our prisons with young people like Mitchell Lawrence. 98% of people arrested in drug-free school zones weren't selling drugs to children. 95% of all sales aren't near any schools. And most of those arrested didn't even know they were in a so-called school zone, including Mitchell Lawrence. He didn't know that virtually the entire town of Great Barrington, like most American cities, is covered by giant drug-free zones. Mandatory prison for anyone arrested within 1,000 feet of a school. That's 3 football fields. It's a bad law that cruel prosecutors abuse, like fanatical District Attorney David Capeless. He decided to press school zone charges on Mitchell Lawrence, a felony for a $20 sale. What happened to Mitchell is happening to young Americans all around the country. The only thing unusual about Mitchell is the color of his skin. 97% of all people arrested in drug-free zones aren't white. The time has come to reform these draconian laws and elect prosecutors who care about reason, compassion, and justice. We need your help to do it. Make our struggle your struggle. Stand with the Lawrence family by supporting a candlelight vigil on the courthouse steps. And join our fight to change these unjust laws. Become a member of the Drug Policy Alliance.
Great. Thank you for joining us again at Drugs, Crime, and Politics, sponsored by the Drug Policy Forum of Texas. Usually we have Dean Becker from KPFT calling in, but it turns out that Tony King, our guest, is actually a field reporter correspondent for Dean, and you know, I guess a personal friend and everything. So.
Oh, yeah. I'm close friends with Dean Becker, and he's doing a lot of things right now. He's in Bolivia, getting a lot of information together, and we were hoping he'd call in tonight. But I want to make sure that y'all know that there's a lot of websites out there to where you can get more information so you can make an informed decision based upon the facts. Don't go by what Bindu says or what I say or anything just one person says. Don't go by what one person says out there on the street. Get the facts. Some of the websites you can go to is endprohibition.org. Okay, another one is thedrugtooth.net. That's Dean's location on the website.
We've got that on the...
Yeah, you can go, well,
yeah.
That's part of what I'm part of, so I'm sure it's been up a couple times, but you can go there and find out a lot of these websites, but it's just like LEAP, leap.cc, that's Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. This is an organization of post-sheriffs, anything you can think of, any part of law enforcement. From secret to everything but Secret Service. We'll put it that way. We'll just make it short and simple. But there's a lot of organizations. Dean does the 420 Drug War News on KPFT 90.1 Monday through Saturday at 4:20 in the afternoon. You can get information there. He always gets a lot of information from a lot of other organizations and people, different places, so that he gives you the best information he can get his hands on, and he works hard at doing what he does. It's Friday at 1 o'clock. He does a show on KPFT, Century of Lies. And then on Friday at 7 p.m. he does another show. It's called Cultural Baggage. So, you can get a lot of information from Dean, and that's at 90.1 KPFT. It's a nonprofit organization. Basically, we do what we do out of the love for the people in this country. And everyone should have a reason for doing something special. And so find something that works for you special and do it. And if you want to get more information about what we're talking about, more in depth, go to one of these websites. And you can always go to drugtooth.net. There's a page there that tells you probably about 40 different websites you can go to, from medical sources to independent sources to law enforcement sources, any part of the organizations that you're interested in and want to find out what somebody has to say, go to the website, look it up on your page. I challenge you to go out there and get your information.
Right, definitely. And what a lot of people don't know, KPFT, you were talking about, and take for granted, is that we do have KPFT and that we do have Pacifica Radio. There are a lot of cities, major metropolitan cities, that don't get to hear that news stream, that don't get to hear that news for the people, by the people, and they don't get to hear Dean. And it's unfortunate. Right. When I moved here to Houston, this is what's basically on all my radios. And so you can actually volunteer for 90.1. You can contribute money. KPFT.org is their website. Right. DrugTruth.net. You can stream Dean live. I actually forgot what I was going to ask you. Oh, we were talking about during the break, you were an actual correspondent for Dean's show while in prison.
Basically, while I was locked up in Harris County Jail.
Jail.
As far as in prison, you understand that you get to make a phone call once every 90 days. And if nobody's there at the other end, when you make that call, you go back to your tank and you wait another 90 days. So if you're expecting a phone call from a loved one that's locked up, please be by the phone when it's their time to call, and most of them will know when it's time to call or the day. But it means a lot to have that little 5-minute phone call. When you got 90 days and you don't see anybody, it's nice to be able to make that 5-minute phone call.
Right.
So, but in Harris County Jail, while I was locked up, you can make a 15-minute phone call, collect, and I was compiling information while I was locked up in Harris County Jail, and we're passing that information on through the Drug Truth Network, and giving them the information so that they could take that information and turn it into solid information that people knew that was the truth, because I was inside there. I was the one that was reporting it. And at the time, I was going through it as an anonymous person, Mr. K. I did that for personal reasons, to save me a lot of grief while I was locked up in there. I actually did get found out at one time that they found out I was doing something, and they moved me to another spot. But it still didn't stop me, and it's not going to stop. But Tommy Thomas in Harris County, the jailers are overworked. The inmates are overcrowded. They treat people like trash in there, and people need to come clean and get things right. And don't lock up your nonviolent criminals. If they need help, give them some help.
Right. Right, and so you were saying, that's absolutely true, but it's kind of cool. You were saying that while you were on this 15-minute collect phone call, Dean would put up the recorder and record your interviews and everything.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. What types of interviews did you do there?
I would interview different inmates, people that were there locked up, to find out what was the nature of their crime, why they were locked up. You know, did they have domestic disturbance, or was it for drugs? Was it for alcohol? Actually, in Harris County, probably less than 5% of the people that I talked to are actually some kind of a violent criminal, or they committed a crime that had actually hurt someone else. The problem in Harris County is the people that have mental health issues don't get addressed properly at the proper time. And they need to be addressed immediately, because just because they're locked up doesn't mean that they don't need the medical attention that they needed when they were out in the free world. So those people need the help.
Right.
And
they don't need to be locked up.
The people that are supposed to monitor it should be allowed access into Harris County Jail at any point in time. Because right now Harris County Jail is a lockdown facility. They won't allow anybody to come in that's not scheduled. And so that's the way things are in Harris County Jail.
Yeah.
So, but I think somebody needs to be able to go in there and monitor them.
Right.
They're supposed to be able to, but they
Just like
don't.
you would have health care.
Right.
Yeah. Well, looks like we have a caller wanting to join us. Hello?
Thank you. 10-second follow-up for the most interesting thing Tony said. Did you say 92 at night, 112 during the day, something like that?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you said, and the most interesting thing you said was right after that, you could be locked up for treating a dog like that. So either we need to really look into, changing the laws on how we treat our canines, or how we, institute humane policy.
Right.
I'm for the humane policy.
Right. Thank you so much for that call and for making that point. Yeah, there was some letter to the editor I was reading today that says when we make laws on what we do to ourselves, or something basically about what we do in our spare time or what we do in our homes, then that's a little bit of a step towards fascism. And then there's no laws on regulating the temperature in a jail cell.
Right.
That's basically inhumane. So
absolutely. Like I said, when we get locked up for treating our animals, you leave your children in a car locked up and let it get 92 degrees. You deserve to be locked up, because you shouldn't do that to kids. But what makes the authorities have the right to do that to people like me? I'm 52 years old. I didn't deserve to be in that kind of heat. I didn't deserve to be thrown in those kind of tanks. Some of y'all might think so, because you think I committed an illegal crime. Well, based upon the laws, it was illegal. But you know what? I've never hurt anyone in my life. And I don't have any intentions of hurting anyone now. I'll do anything I can to help anybody. But I've been kicked in the teeth. And I came back out, and I'm going to smile, and I'm going to carry on with my life, and I'm going to be happy. Now, you didn't beat me.
Yeah. The war is not over yet.
That's right.
So some of the things that we can do to change some of these things, you are obviously awesome. You speak out about it. You are a correspondent for the Drug Truth Network show. We were talking earlier. Please call your representatives. Please write letters to them. Go to their offices. Participate. Don't be a spectator, or else you'll get run over. And it looks like we're going to have to wrap things up here. I'd like to thank you so much, Mr. King, for coming on our show.
Thank you. I enjoyed being here.
Yeah, you're an awesome guest. I'd like to Bill Cox, we'll see him again 2 weeks from now. And he was an awesome interviewer as well. And thank you, Drugs Policy Forum of Texas, and everyone have a good night.
Good.
Got it.
Present policy of drug prohibition is hopeless. It is hopeless. It will never get better. Literally, victory today is being defined as slowing down the pace of defeat.
We ought to listen to science and medicine when it comes to whether marijuana or any other substance has a medical benefit.
The fact that marijuana is a less dangerous drug.
We're going full-blown into a program that has failed and failed every other time we've tried it. Please point out one success in 30 years of an eradication program that has stopped drugs.